Leadership TV for God and country.
Studio for Ondo State decides. As we speak, the Ondo State residents are going about voting in their choice for the next 4 years on who will become their governor. My name is Winifred Ubebo. Of course, I'm back to the studio with leadership analyst. On my left, Chibuzo Kaipe, and on my right, James Cohen. It's a pleasure to have you on the program. So we are going to be bringing you reports from the state as we go on with our analysis in the studio. We also have the online editor, Bode Gbadebo, joining us virtual. Bode, you're welcome. Yes, Chibuzo,
yes,
and James, I want to ask both of you, what could be the deciding factors in this ongoing Ondo State? Why do my mouth keep going to Ondo State? Ondo State decide. What could be the deciding factor? Is it a factor for incumbency on the incumbency factor? Could he actually play a role?
Well,
At least Lucky Ayedatiwa has been there for more than a year now since Rotimi Akeredolu passed on, the erstwhile governor of the state.
yes. The incumbency thing, of course, is always going to be an advantage. But there are projections and there are insinuations that a good number of other factors might play out. There's the question about the seeming division, within the ranks of the Akeredolu supporters. Some people came up and said they are going to back the SDP
Candidate.
and and there was a counter to that there is no such thing. Then there's the Mimiko, former governor of the state, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko.
Yes.
He's still a political how much of a political factor is he in the state? Will might play a role in this. But as we speak, although he has there is a Mimiko also on the ballot.
But the last time I checked, he was in Labour Party. Or has he
Mimiko.
defected?
No, Mimiko.
Oh, sorry, PDP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mimiko
I think he was in Labour Party. He now went to PDP.
Zenith Labour Party.
Zenith Labour Party.
In fact, there is a Mimiko that is a candidate in this election on the platform of Zenith Labour Party. But in the build-up to this whole process, he has been working closely with Ayedatiwa. So many feel that that might help to push Ayedatiwa's.
But we didn't see a step down of those close allies like we saw in Edo Guba election.
A step down of
some candidates, political candidates. So I'm stepping down.
Yeah, so far.
We've not seen so far in this election because the number is quite huge. 17 candidates just for one position.
Yes. So these are a few things that might play out. Then, of course, the zoning thing. But interestingly, both candidates come up from the same riverine area of the state. So it's going to be a battle. The battle is going to be really intense, in that part of the state where they are from. So these are, I think, some of the issues that might, play out. The stature of the
issue of rotation,
power rotation, the question about whether which of the former deputies still enjoy support from the establishment, as it were. So like we said earlier, a battle of two former deputies and how well they have been able to authorize themselves in the political system. So I think these are just a few things that might.
James, you have your own question.
Okay, just like he rightly said, on the side of the PDP governorship candidates, Agbola Ajayi, the former governorship candidate, the candidate of 2020 election, Jegede San, being a member of that, being a chieftain of the PDP, And from all indications, obviously, he's also supporting the candidate of his party, that is Ajayi.
Okay.
So it's like a kind of a sharp divide. Why the incumbent governor Lucky may be lucky to be enjoying the support of the former governor Mimiku. We also have a Jegede here supporting and Jegede, a renowned senior advocate, is well respected among the people of Ondo State. And then there is a kind of a trajectory since the coming in of the present administration, that is government at the center. Because we have in the previous administration of President Buhari, really he was, that was when APC lost most of his states, to some other political parties, and like using the door, for instance, and he will, quickly congratulate them. But then in the present administration, I think apart from Bayelsa, that it became too obvious that Bayelsa was a PDP state and nothing could change about it, that the election had to go the way of...
besides, the APC candidate said not to enjoy that rosy relationship with the president. The APC candidate for Bayelsa. That also played the role.
But then the case, such a case is not that of Lucky, because when Governor Lucky came in, though there was the political family of Akeredolu, formerly known as Aketi, that wanted the governorship ticket to come their way. They were thinking that they would be more favored by the president, but I think the whole thing was allowed, and Ayeditiwa secure the ticket. And also there are, already there are moves. There are political moves.
However, now that you just trace the history of, you notice that during the first tenure of the late Akeredolu, we didn't have a good relationship or robust relationship with the president now, Bola Tinubu. He came in on the ticket of Oyegun as APC chairman. Of course, that episode almost tore the party apart, if you remember. And it was just that the president then alleged that it was not done. Nobody was carried alone. It was a sole decision taken by Oyegun and some of his loyalists in the National Working Committee of the party. However, but that's when change in the second tenure of Aketi may have cemented their relationship.
And incidentally, Aketi is credited to be the one that fought fiercely for a sudden presidential presidency.
Yes.
So I think those could be some of the building blocks of that almost collapsed relationship.
Yes.
And where already there are groups who have been assuring us, and there are moves that the president is going to contest for a second term in 2020.
And based on that, because I was just tracing the history, so that was why I'm also of the view that Lucky is just lucky, because everybody expected that the president would have wanted to maybe pick his candidate this time around in Ondo State, since Akeredolu was no more. You understand? So, but that was not the case. The president is actually backing Lucky. We saw that when with the big wigs, like led by the Vice President Shetima, led APC governors to the state just recently to support the Ayetiwa's nomination.
Political parties view governors as their field commanders. So all these, the 2027 presidential race or election is also a factor here, because the president or the ruling party at the national level, we need more states in each kitty.
Yes.
For it to be able to fight the battle of 2027.
All right, so, James, I have to interrupt you now. We have our candidate, Abiola.
Our correspondent.
Sorry, our correspondent,
Abiola.
He's our candidate.
He's right there. How are you? Welcome. Welcome to Leadership Studio. Ondo State decides. Can you just brief us on what is happening in Ondo presently?
Hello.
Speak out. We are not hearing you.
Sorry, we can't hear you. Speak out.
We can't hear you. Yes, we are experiencing some technical glitches from his end. The audio is just so poor. However, we'll continue our discussion right here in the studio until we can hear him clearly. Now, as you were saying, so you said it's all about 2027.
No, I say it's not all about that. It's also a factor.
There's a factor.
Because the APC, you normally political parties, the really ruling ones, always boast of having the structure. So the structures, all the structures, because the structures will be deployed to the advantage of Governor Lucky, because for APC to maintain a grip on Ondo, because Ondo at least has been an APC.
But that presidential election of 2023 actually demystified this notion of having structure. When we saw the new entrant, Peter Obi of Labour Party, I was taking some states that they don't even have structure in place.
Apart from, I think they were able to take Abia State for the fact that the governor also contested governorship.
No, I'm talking about presidential.
Presidential, of course.
Yes.
Presidential, of course.
Actually demystified this notion of structure in ground, no structure. I said, given the fact that he was able to still win some states, irrespective of the fact that they don't even have structures in those states.
Yes, but there are still states that structure works. So, because even in the case of IBA, the only governorship spots that the party got, Dr. Alex Oti, actually left APC at the close to the governorship primaries when he withdrew and joined Labour Party.
All right, we have the online editor Bode Gbadebo joining us live. Bode, how are you? Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Oh, I'm still experiencing audio poor quality. So go on with your thoughts.
The plan of having more states, because the ruling party at the national always believe, or it is a belief, that by the time it has more states in its fold, it should be able to have a better, impressive performance in the next general election, which there are already strong indications that the incumbent president is going to run. So there were also complaints at the Edo governorship election that the security agencies were doing the bidding of the federal government, that is the federal might. All these factors put together that culminated in the victory of APC in Ondo State, and it is expected that, or it is believed that such thing would definitely, because APC say they were going to return Ondo and reclaim Edo. So they have now reclaimed Edo, and it's expected that they are now, the task before them is to return Edo. Already governors of the parties were here in their numbers. We earlier talk about the governor of Benue being there trying to woo Benue people, and the governor, and we have in fact, many other governors. Yeah, Sanwo-Olu is there, the neighboring governor from Southwest. Governor Zulu came all the way from Borno, was also there. So I know Zulum is one of those governors or leaders that command a lot of respect, maybe based on his perceived performance back home in Borno. So they were all there. Though campaigns were closed, but consultations were still ongoing, and they stayed there all the night preparing ahead of this. I'm not saying PDP too. The governors of PDP too were also there.
Now, in an election where we have 17 candidates. Okay, Bode, welcome back. Bode, welcome back. But are you hearing me? Now, back to the studio. Chibuzo, in an election where we have 17 candidates vying for the seat, number one seat of Ondo State.
Can you hear me, sir?
We don't have a female candidate.
Well, that's an interesting observation. At least in Edo we had, I think, one. I think we had one, and now we are having none.
No, 17.
It doesn't.
It's quite a large number.
Yes, it is. It doesn't speak well about female representation. Definitely on the surface. On the surface, but questions need to be asked. Even at the turn of this administration, at the turn of various administration, I think there was a significant decline in women participation. Or the number of women.
Yes, there was. Yes.
I think we did a report on that.
Because even in the upper House of Assembly, we only had Senator Binta.
I think we have only three senators now.
Yes. Okay.
Even in the House of Reps, I can't remember how many we have. But before then,
we have how many?
I think just slightly more than 10 or within that region. Not
and this is, I think, before the Buhari administration, there were more. We had a lot more, much more women, even though there were complaints that they were not enough. But we had more women, because when you compare Nigeria with countries like Namibia and Kenya and these other countries, they have a very
fair representation of women.
Yes, a better representation of women in their parliament. For the executive, I don't know, but for their parliament. But we saw a decline under the Buhari years, and I think that has also continued so far
on the downward trajectory
in the Tinubu administration. But of course, the factors for why what women face in politics has always been there. There's been the call severally about women should be encouraged to participate in the process. There's even a debate about giving them specific slots. The affirmation call has always been there. But at the end of the day, it's a campaign that continues. Many people were happy to see for the first time or for the second time a female presidential candidate in the US, in major, So many people felt, okay, maybe that would help to set up a chain reaction.
Of course, it has not.
That has not happened.
Yes, we are still going to go back to that, because we had this situation whereby Trump in 2016 competed against a woman. 2016, he won. 2024, the same scenario also played out, and he won. And the first one was with a white Caucasian woman, and this time it was a black. So it's not about maybe the color, as many people will say. It's all about sex. Anyway, we'll come back to that. Okay. But welcome back. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, and good afternoon to my colleagues.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you. Right now, Ondo State decides, and those states indigenes, they are going to the polls to decide who their governor will be for the next 4 years. What are your thoughts on what is happening now?
Well, from the reports we have so far, and the reports we published so far on the leadership website, as supplied by one of the person on this show, Mr. Abiola Alo from Ekiti, who is part of our correspondent now on ground in Ondo State. Another two correspondents, Tope Fayem and Abdul Wahid Adebayo, they've been feeding us with situation reports. And from the report so far, everything is peaceful. People troop out to actually participate in today's exercise. There are no reports of violence so far. Everything has been orderly, except for one instance where we were told that a suspected vote buyer was arrested. And I think if that's the only case for now, you can know that we have actually achieved some measure of progress compared to what we recorded in the recent past elections in Edo and others, where there were a lot of cases of vote buying and the rest of them. So if only one instance, and it's an attempted approach that actually happened in Ondo today, then we have recorded a lot of progress in curbing vote buying. So far, so good. It has been very, very encouraging and interesting.
The PDP candidate, Guba candidate, Agbola Ajayi, did raise the alarm that beavers for 10 minutes failed to capture him until the intervention of the INEC staff, where he was now accredited. And he had already said that things should be done in the right way, and he had complained about the whole exercise. What is happening? Why is it that the INEC has not been able to get his act right in regards to beavers' performance?
Well, for me, we also have that report on the leadership website where the governor, the PDP governorship candidate, who is the major challenger to Governor Lucky Aiyedatiwa, actually lamented the malfunction of the bimodal voter registration system, which is called Beavers. Now, that is just an isolated case, I want to believe, and it is not enough to actually rate the exercise so far. So, yes, it's technology. Technology can malfunction at any time. It could be attributed to anything. It could be power. It could be just, a glitch. It's technology. It's not perfect. And if it is that one isolated instance, and the governor was able to vote, the governorship candidate of the PDP, Mr. Agbola Ajayi, was able to vote after about 10 minutes. I don't think it's enough to raise an alarm. It's enough to raise an alarm. But typical of the Nigerian politician who is afraid of being, dealt with or, manipulated against, we want to raise alarm so that authorities concerned will actually pay attention. But if that's the only case we have so far, it's not enough to rate the exercise. We can only keep our fingers crossed for now to see what will be the outcome of the exercise at the end of the day. And it's also important that INEC will walk its talk. Results must reflect the people's will. So if results are captured on beavers, they should be the same result we should have on IREF portal, so that we also can forget the experience in Edo, where some political parties complain that results of election recorded at polling units were different from results announced at the state collation center. So INEC must be on top of its game to make sure the results officially collated at each polling center are captured without mistake on the IREF portal, and now they would be the same results that will be declared at the end of the day. So whoever wins is the people's choice. So there won't be litigation, there won't be complaints, there won't be violence at the end of the day. So with that, we know that we're actually moving forward ahead of the 2027 general election.
Because it's not enough to have a peaceful election, but it's collation at the end of the day that matters. Because we, like the last concluded Edo Guba post, we saw what happened. There were allegations that at the end of the day, INEC was manually collating results. So isn't it high time INEC walk its talk by transmitting real time to IREF portal the results of this voting?
Winifred, is actually INEC did the same thing 4 years earlier in Ondo State, when the immediate past governor, Godwin Obaseki, won his re-election 4 years ago. So, and I don't know why it's now difficult for INEC 4 years after, when it should have improved its system, improved its performance. So I don't know why it's now difficult for INEC to now go back to some manual kind of work, which are actually susceptible to contestation, susceptible to complaints, and disagreement. So I don't know why INEC is doing that. And it's a challenge for the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to actually improve. I know, yes, other stakeholders need to cooperate with INEC to make sure that the electoral system in Nigeria is credible, is acceptable, and it also meets international best practice. Winifred, the recent US presidential election have had Nigerians, talking about how America was able to collate millions of votes within hours and days to declare election results. And in Nigeria, you don't even have millions in an off-cycle election like in Kogi. Even the national election where you have millions, which is less than 30 million, you will still have days and complaints and, back and forth to get the results. So INEC should be able to bequeath, especially under Mahmoud Yakub, should be able to bequeath an electoral system more credible than it met it. An electoral system that will be, in tandem with international best practice. So for me, the challenge is on INEC to work it up and do the right thing.
Now, lastly, but before we let you go, talking about the power of incumbency, we are of the opinion that, or critics are of the opinion that when an incumbent actually has given his people dividends of democracy, he shouldn't have a hard time campaigning for re-election. Do you think so?
On one hand, and no, on the other hand, because who define dividends of democracy? Is it by giving people peanuts in the name of capital grants to do businesses, 25,000 naira, 50,000 naira, 100,000? Is it by building roads and bridges? Is it by making life comfortable for people? Is it by providing security? And when I say all this, what we are going through in Nigeria today. That the cost of living has never been this high. People cannot even afford basic things of life, basic necessities. So education-wise, poor people cannot send their children and wards to schools where they can get better education because the cost is high. The healthcare is there. Out-of-pocket expenses is more than what government is doing for people. And people don't even have this money. So it means if you don't have money, you can't get the best of healthcare. So how do we define all this as someone has done them? And if he has done them, should he or she have a difficult time campaigning for people? Election or in a democracy, people should have a say. People should decide who becomes their leader. If you have done all this for people and people say, okay, you've done better, but there is somebody outside who will believe we've done better than you. People can choose, people can decide and also vote against that person you think have done better for people. But in Nigeria, whether you have done the better or you have done worse, the gladiators are more concerned about the amount of resources at their disposal. Because they know if they use these resources, they can sway people's their opinion by forcing themselves on the people at all costs, and they will win the election. Again, it's also depend on which side of the divide are you. Are you on the side of the government at the center, or you are on the opposition side? People also bank on this factor to win election. And I had somebody yesterday on the national TV also saying, see, how do we rate President Bola Tinubu with the immediate past President Muhammadu Buhari? And the person was trying to find out who is more democratic, because under the Buhari administration, we discovered that Buhari was aloof to off-cycle election in states. He would not want to use federal might to force his party to win. Under Tinubu, especially in Edo, there are a lot of questions. People believe, Tinubu wants to record success or victory for his party at all costs, and security men were deployed too much to Edo to actually influence the election in favor of the APC. Because during the complaint for vote buying, they said it happened right in the presence of policemen, and they were looking the other way. We recall that the immediate past governor, Godwin Obaseki, went to the collation center to formally, lodge a complaint, and he was walked out by the police. And I said, no, that was wrong. People were saying the governor had no business to be there. And I said, the governor was not a contender. The governor at that time was the chief security officer of the state. He can be anywhere at any time, so long he didn't come and influence anything. So it's not about your performance in Nigeria. Very, very unfortunate, actually. It's about the amount of money you have. It's about your amount of connection with the government at the center. It's about amount of the foot soldiers we have who can actually intimidate voters and get votes for you at all costs. So this is not democracy. It is authoritarianism, and we can't continue like this in the 21st century. And of course, that this does not meet the barest standards of international best practice as far as democracy is concerned. So we have a lot of way to travel to make sure that we engender an acceptable and credible electoral system in Nigeria, so that we can actually gain what they call dividends of democracy. Not because somebody is just giving people seed grants, 25,000 naira, 50,000 naira, the market women go and do this. No, that's not democracy. That's not democracy.
Thank you so much. But they know. Would you say that the electoral system or the processes that brings in these political leaders, talking about the Electoral Act, is skewed for these leaders to come in? Because we see a situation whereby some political leaders, not all, use all means to impose themselves via this electoral system. What can be done? Electoral Act, many critics say, is the bane of development in Nigeria. Do you agree? And what can be done?
Yes, I think you asked the right question. The law, the electoral system as we have now, 2022, as amended, yeah, you can actually say is skewed in favor of the political class. Because I know civil society organizations, some concerned Nigerians have been making calls for amendments, and the National Assembly, is not looking towards that side. Even INEC itself knows that it is overburdened, and that's why it's not performing its function to the optimal level. For example, let me tell you, how many electoral offenders have you seen INEC prosecuting in courts? No. Recall the case of the suspended, because the man still remains suspended and nobody's talking anything about him. The suspended INEC resident electoral commissioner in Adamawa State, Hudu Hari. You will recall what he did. That action was capable of throwing the state into chaos, though the situation was immediately salvaged by INEC and the right thing was done. The man was suspended by the president then, at that time, Muhammadu Buhari. And up to today, we have not seen him appearing in courts to answer for his offenses. INEC and police are not on the same page to arraign the man. So you can say INEC is overburdened. So we need amendment of the Electoral Act. One, to make sure we have an independent body to tackle electoral offenses. That body will be similar to an anti-corruption agency that will make sure it fight vote buying. Every electoral offenses will be dealt with by that commission. And even if you are caught on the wrong side of the law, that commission will now arraign you in court to answer for your offenses. While INEC will be focused on its core mandate of organizing a free and fair election. So that's why today we have not seen anybody answering for his crime in the law court for election-related violence or election-related offenses. Secondly, INEC, the way and manner, the inconsistent way it has been announcing results must stop. You will announce somebody winner in one state under a certain circumstances, but you will announce another person a loser in another place under the same circumstances. That inconsistency must stop, especially in the area of number of cancelled votes. You will cancel votes somewhere, you will declare election inconclusive because the margin of lead is below the number of cancelled votes in a place. While in another place, the same INEC will announce results when the number of cancelled votes is much more higher than the margin of lead. That is unsustainable. That's not fair. That's inconsistency. So a lot of things need to be done. Third, number three, is we have to upgrade our electoral law to make sure we incorporate electronic voting. Yes, we've employed technology so far in the electoral system by adopting the BIVAS, transmission of election results, which is not consistent again, and INEC is saying, see, we are not bound by law that if we transmit election results in state A, that we must transmit the same election result in state B. Inconsistency. So there must be a law backing it up to make sure that it must be done, not at the whim of caprices of some people. So that means INEC will start changing people in one way or the other systematically. That's not sustainable. So we must incorporate election e-voting, electronic voting in our system. The popular saying of the more the merrier. Nigerians abroad, who are in large number, must have a say in who governs their state or country, as the case may be. Because these are the people we talk about every year that they have a lot of remittances to Nigeria, in billions of dollars remittances to Nigeria, back to their country. And these billions of dollars, in one way or the other, is helping our economy. So if these people are making remittances to the country of their heritage, they must have a say in the leadership recruitment of that country. So there must be electronic voting, so that people abroad can also vote. We've seen it in other countries, and it's okay, it's successful. Why can't we do the same thing? And we call ourselves the giant of Africa. So we must in all indices, in all, indexes of development, portray ourselves as truly a giant of Africa. So Winifred, yeah, the Electoral Act needs amendment in those areas I've just outlined, and in other areas where other stakeholders might actually deem necessary to actually have a credible electoral system in Nigeria.
All right, thank you so much, Bode Badebo. It's been a pleasure having
Thank
you
you so
to
much.
share your thoughts on the whole processes of electoral system in Nigeria, especially on those states who's taking place now in Ondo State. Well, welcome back to the studio. I still have my in-house analyst being flanked by my in-house analyst, Chibuzo and James Gwen. We still want to hook up with our correspondent in Akure for on-the-spot report on what is happening in Akure. Ondo State decides. Yes, before we entertain the Bode Gbadebo, we're sharing on the election that took place in US where we have a female candidate. So what portray, because many people are saying the fact that it's like America is not ready for a female president.
But there is
irrespective of the race now.
there is that notion, but I don't think it is rooted in any empirical evidence so far.
Yes,
So
but the fact that, okay, in 2016, Trump contested against Hillary Clinton, a white woman, and in 2024, a black woman, Kamala Harris, or an Indian, I don't even know. So, but however, she also suffered the same fate like Hillary Clinton did in 2016. What is happening here?
Well, yeah, that's what I don't think it is. There's no empirical reason. There's no empirical evidence to prove that she lost because the Americans don't want a female president or are not ready for a female president yet. However, there are other factors that so far have been playing up, and it's been ranging. There's the talk about her joining the race quite late in the day.
But if they were so enabled, this is somebody that came in, even though it was quite late, she was able to raise a huge amount of money, war chest, in terms of election, and even surpassing Donald Trump.
When he became the candidate,
that's to tell you the support and the more support she enjoyed. So why didn't it translate to votes?
When he became so those are the intrigues. When he became the candidate of Trump, also raised a lot of money.
Yeah, but
I agree. What I'm trying to say is, when you become the candidate of either of these two major parties, the prospects of getting major donors to support you are high. So how do they translate to votes now becomes the issue. And so that's why people felt there were a number of factors. Maybe perhaps she didn't get to introduce, people didn't get to know her well, especially in rural areas, because those were the places Trump got the bulk of his votes. The swing states, and most of those swing states are rural. They are not like California or New York or Florida. Florida.
And of course, reports say that economic considerations also played a role. Like one of the swing states, Arizona, is said to have the highest unemployment rate.
The factors are just ranging. And as an incumbent, your rating is usually of the dip. As incumbent, most times in countries like that. It's also, and she was also a part of an administration that had many complaints against its financial performance. There was inflation rates, all of that, and then the border crisis, which was one of Trump's major push. So I don't think it comes that it just boils down to her being a woman in that sense.
That made her lose.
I am not saying that that's not a possibility, but there's no empirical evidence to say, okay, Americans are not just ready for, don't forget, Americans voted more for, what's her name? Hillary in 2016. Yes. She won the popular votes.
Yes.
So would you say Americans are not, so I think you marry it alongside other factors that could have made it difficult for her to win.
All right, thank you so much. Now, coming to you, James, because you've been in the National Assembly for a long while. And was it 9th or 8th assembly? We had bees, start to give some women specific slots in the National Assembly and even designate some positions for women. And it was thrown out.
Okay, yeah. It was in the Ninth Assembly that they collectively called gender bills. One of the gender bills called for additional seats
for women
in each of the states and FCT. That is the statutory in the case of Senate, where each state has 3 senators. The bill was that at least another seat, one seat, should be reserved exclusively for women. Though the bill could not skate through when it comes to voting, it passed through first reading, second reading, and even at the level of the constitutional hearing, briefing, hearing, the zonal hearing. But when it came to the voting, on the day of voting on those bills, those gender bills could not see the light of the day. However, the Constitutional Review Committee, under the leadership of the Deputy Speaker Honorable Benjamin Okezie-Kalu in the 2000, in the present Assembly, those bills have been reintroduced. And I think progress is being made on. So maybe we will wait the outcome of, because they haven't started a public hearing. At this level for constitutional review, they call it zonal hearing. Normally they do it in this, the 6 geopolitical zones. So we'll be expecting the outcome of it when the time for voting. Because even the other time, it's cut through all the other legislative steps or processes. It was thrown out at the final voting, at the consideration, the final voting. So this time too, we look forward to see whether it will go through. And I think there has been a lot of sensitization. Recently, the same committee in the House of Representatives organized a high-powered conference which talks about the issue of women with the First Lady, a former senator, that is Senator Oluremi Tinubu was there, and she bemoans the status or the participation of women in politics by, through holding positions. And there were a lot of inputs, even from the EU and many other groups. So these are all the processes leading towards the legislation, the pieces of legislation around, to increase women participation in politics, maybe by becoming candidates and winning more political offices.
Thank you so much. Now, I want to find out, despite the awareness, of course, people will say that we're in the 21st century. Why is it that Nigerian women's participation in politics continue to dwindle?
Well, is that for me or
for both?
Well, there are factors. Well, we all know.
And just like Chibuzo pointed that it started going down during Buhari's time, President Buhari's time.
Well, I want to take a different perspective. Maybe during the Buhari time, because Buhari was associated with maybe some level of, a kind of mentality up here in the north, where women are not necessarily considered for leadership position, though there is no empirical evidence about that, so I leave it at that. But from my understanding of covering election and the electoral umpire, which itself also at the time said they are creating avenues for, they want women full participation. When you talk about electoral politics, we in this party system where we run, we're yet to have independent candidacy, though of course they be before National Assembly. But then people have to come through political parties. And, the process leading to the purchase of forms, of course, I know specifically of APC and PDP that they have a consideration, a percentage that is reduced for women in purchasing expression of interest and nomination forms for the election. But then, at times, I can see that founding is one of the issues against women, and then the issue of cultural factors, because we are still in a culture where many still believe, as our former president will say it famously, that his wife belonged to his kitchen and the other room. So I think many Nigerians cultures still have that kind of mentality. So what we need is then lack of unity, because there are evidences, though not empirically proven, but there are situations where they say the problem of a woman is another woman. That women tend to support men more, yes, than a woman who is contesting or is vying for a particular position. So maybe by the time, maybe as a result of our education, as a result of awareness, we're able to weather down some of these storms, especially as regards the cultural background. And maybe by the time, if we reduce, the overspending in election, by the time we reduce electoral expenditure, maybe we'll have more women on ground. And by the time maybe women themselves tend to be united and speak with one voice, I think the situation will change for better.
But I also want to, I
agree with what you said.
You couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it any better. And I do think that women too should develop some grit. What do I mean? We saw how, and we've had some very, very solid faith. But I think women should also develop some more, I don't know how to, some more political resolve and muscle to engage the process with the mindset of I deserve to be here, not that I want hand-me-downs. So because unless they begin to have that kind of mindset, they will keep being in that position where, when after eating, they will not give you the crumbs. Because from the position women are coming from, for me, that appears to be what is. Give us. But you are not engaging the process well enough. Natasha Akpoti has shown that if a woman politician decides to engage the process the same way, it's difficult, it's tough. But you can imagine the impact that she has made. She has paved the way for younger female politicians to engage the process.
She has done so well. You saw the video that
just within a year. So I think these are things female politicians should look at and pursue. Before her, there was the former deputy governor of Ekiti State, Senator. I will remember her name. The same thing. You understand? So it shows that women are
deputy governor of Tofayoshe.
Yes. It shows that women shouldn't see themselves as deserving of leftovers. They should be able to engage the system. That's the only thing I can add to this fantastic submission.
Okay, maybe to add to that, I quite agree with you on the issue of being bold and following all the process, not leaving it that my people are doing it, because if Iriti Kengibe, the president senator representing the FCT, had given it a little chance, because I remember I was at the ICC international conference center venue for the national coalition of the last general election. When some of her aides start calling on, like with some of the reporters, that to voice out her frustrations, because according to her, she alleged that there was plan to tamper with her election. The fact that in her own case there were a lot of factors.
Yes, they delayed it days.
That the natives, the indigenous or the aborigines of Federal Capital Territory say the only thing they have, because hitherto there was no minister from the FCT, so the highest thing they have politically was a senator, which Philip Aduda.
But it's not because she's a woman.
It was not. It was not basically. So her factors were mainly. Yes, her factors that worked like what they don't want her was that at a point when Aduda could not make it, they cried, and the emotions the sentiment that was being whipped was that is the only thing that an indigenous of FCT had. So it should not be taken away from us. In fact, it was the own version of a Milakam. That was their own version of it. That you should bet the woman stood her ground.
Exactly.
She walked around. She cried out. She made sure everybody heard her. And I think eventually she was heard.
She had no choice, because of the also presidential candidate too. Also had of the same party that she belonged. You understand?
Okay.
You know, they ruled in the same party and the election took place also that very day. Now, going forward, so what are we expecting from INEC? Because this is Ondo State Decides on Leadership Television Studio. We are analyzing situation reports taking place right now in Ondo State as the citizens go to the polls to elect their number one man that will lead them in the next 4 years. So what are we expecting from INEC at the end of the day? My question is, does INEC review its so there are times after elections conducted, you sit down, you review the processes, you see the lapses and the way forward. Does it do that?
Yeah. Yes, it does. It does.
And it's not improving.
It does. Because they look at the administrative procedure and everything. And that is why, well, in fairness to them, that is why in many of the electoral attempt to amend the Electoral Act, they also bring in their own position. And such positions are informed by their experience of from the election that is being conducted. So to say that they don't review themselves, INEC review itself, its administrative and whatever processes in the conduct of the election. And that is why normally when in their budget of next year, maybe they will say that we had shortage of beavers, we had this, and this is what we need. We need more training. That is why there are more workshops, post-mortem of it's supposed to be so at the end of every election. But you should also remember that most of those things are very rhetoric. You know, it's just a kind of rhetoric that we have in Nigeria. In fact, there are things that have become a norm. So we just follow the tradition. We just follow it because there is virtually, apart from INEC, I think there is virtually no institution in Nigeria that does not hold a review of itself.
However, like Bode pointed out when we had him virtual a few minutes ago, he did say that the election that was conducted in 2020 in Edo Guba election there's a marked difference from the one that was conducted in September this year. Why that one was better? Because election results were transmitted on a real time to their IREN. This one was manually collated.
Now
So one begins to wonder: are you moving forward or you are moving back?
those are the.
Is why I asked: does INEC review itself in order to improve on
In the course of an election.
election?
You mean in the course of an election?
Yes.
Does INEC should
No,
INEC
after
be able
each election.
to review itself
Yes.
in the course
To
of an
do
election?
better, yes, to improve.
No, wait. There are two things.
He said they do.
You know-
and why has he not been able to really?
You know,
I'm not being biased.
no. What I'm saying is, what me I'm coming from is, in the course of an election, yes, the INEC chairman perhaps might not have much to do because who calls the shots is the
President
The Electoral Commission.
Electoral Commission.
yes, and
Down to local government.
the what's the university people? What do they
Okay,
know?
the returning
The
officers.
returning officers.
The returning and collection officers.
The returning officer is assumed to be fully in charge of that process. And so whatever has to happen is to a large extent, not ultimately, but to a large extent, he has overwhelming influence in the process of the course of an election, a particular
in the
election.
state.
Yes, in the state. But I might have to check on this, but I do understand that there's a window to address specific complaints. For instance, if there is, and I think it is based on that the PDP candidate in the Edo election started calling for a review before the announcement of the election because of the discrepancies they noticed in certain polling units where results were altered and didn't align. So they were saying, this has happened. Why don't we fix this before we go ahead with the collation process? And it also played out in 2023, if you recall, where people were saying, no. We've discovered a few discrepancies. Why must we have to go through all of that? If you have identified this and we feel, let us address. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes,
so if that is review you mean, I think
No,
there is
at least to check the lapses. Like, okay, for instance, they had a beautiful one, like Body pointed out.
It is a routine
in 2020 for Edo Guba. But this is why it was transmitted.
It is a routine thing.
Incidentally, I think that was the first major election because when IREF was introduced, it was first used as for a by-election in Nasarawa State. Instead, I think Nasarawa State Assembly. No, it was first used in Nasarawa, one of the by-election in Nasarawa. Okay. Then the next major election, which the IREF was deployed. No, it was Edo. Yes, Edo was the first major election yes. No, Edo and Ondo took place in 2020. Anambra was in 2021. So I wonder how at this stage, because the deployment was not even across, it was not a general election, and it was just one state. It was just, in fact, a particular state. So that is why no matter what INEC tell us, we expect more, because I think INEC is one of the organizations whose budget is being given, in fact, which is on first line charge. So one will now come and ask, what is INEC lacking? Because if we know that is a question, the question that has not been answered, what is INEC lacking that it cannot give us what we expect? Or what are Nigerians expecting?
And to think that up to now, there has been no, in other places, when you, in a major election, very sensitive election, where all of the things, it's not about what is in the law, all of the things you promised to do.
That is why they have guidelines.
Upload, upload real time, blah, blah, blah. And then you say there is a glitch. In any and it touches on the integrity of the institution. We're not talking about individuals now. It touches on the integrity of the institution. What is expected would have been that a proper probe would have been done on that particular issue.
Yes.
And then a proper report is given to say, okay, this is why the glitch happened. And this is because, like you did point out now, so much money was committed to that process. And the commission made a lot of promises, which make a lot of people come out to engage the process. So, for the sake of the integrity of the institution, a proper probe would have been done, a proper explanation given, so that it saved the integrity of that institution. But none of that was done. So, the concept of review is a routine thing.
That's why I call it rhetoric.
Absolutely. It's not a routine, talk.
Because reports, I remember for that general election, I think about almost how many pages? Hundreds of pages.
They do booklets.
Yes, hundreds of pages.
I have that of 2023. I have that of 2007. No, 2011. Yes. 2015 and 2019 as we speak.
Yes, the 2023 is out.
Okay, I don't have that one yet.
Okay,
so
I think I have it.
And if you read through all of them, there's no major significant difference.
Still the same thing. They just
the only difference might be the polling units increased, or but no
for instance,
major fundamental.
For instance, the one of 2023, the one of 2019 below there were those most of those technologies were not.
They're not deployed.
So
that's just the. So it's not about whether they review themselves. It's about whether they can deploy, they can make the institution work the way it ought to work. But as long as we keep having political, this guy has been appointed the way they do, which for me might not be the silver bullet, but I think if that is weaned off, it might help. It might give a leap. At least before they go back and strategize on how to recapture the place. Our political class can be very, very innovative.
Thank you so much. Well, my analyst, leadership analyst, a pleasure to have you on today's Ondo State Decide studio. My name is Winifred Weber. What viewers as well in today's program and only program this year, because this is the last day of Sector Guba election taking place today in Ondo State. My name is Jennifer Boko. Once again, of course, I've had the pleasure of having with me today in the studio leadership analyst Chibuzo Kagbe and James Coyne. Thank you so much. So until we see you in the next.
See you on November 8th for Anambra. November 8, 2025 for Anambra off-season governorship election.
All right. See you. You've heard from him. Bye.
I think that will be the last election. And
for sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.